Walk into pretty much any supermarket right now, and you will see it everywhere. Protein bars stacked at the checkout. Protein water. Protein pasta. Protein ice cream. Somewhere along the way, protein turned from a boring nutrition label word into the single most marketed word in the entire food industry. Have you ever stopped to wonder how we got here? 50 years ago, protein powder was a niche product mostly bought by competitive bodybuilders mixing bland shakes in a blender at the gym. Today, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the customer base has expanded to basically everyone. People trying to lose weight. People trying to age well. People on new weight loss medications who are told over and over to eat more protein or risk losing muscle along with the fat. Athletes, office workers doing intermittent fasting, grandparents worried about frailty. So what changed? Partly it is science, real findings about muscle preservation and satiety that made their way into headlines. Partly it is marketing, because high protein sells better than almost any other label you can print on a box. And partly it is genuine confusion, because the official guidelines have not really budged. Here is a number that might surprise you. The official recommended amount of protein for an average adult is still just 8 grams per kilogram of body weight. For someone weighing 70 kilograms, that is about 56 grams a day, roughly the amount in 2 chicken breasts. Meanwhile, plenty of popular diet plans, fitness influencers, and bodybuilding forums recommend numbers that are double that, sometimes more. Why the gap? Because that 8 number was never designed to describe an optimal diet. It is the minimum needed to avoid deficiency in a mostly sedentary reference population, a figure worked out decades ago from nitrogen balance experiments, the kind of study where researchers literally measure how much protein goes in and how much nitrogen comes back out in urine and sweat, then find the lowest intake where the body stays even. It says nothing about what happens if you eat 5 or 8 or 2 grams per kilogram instead, which is exactly the range many high-protein diets fall into. To put that in kitchen terms, a large chicken breast has roughly 40 grams of protein. A scoop of whey powder has about 24. A typical protein bar packs somewhere between 15 and 30. Stack up 2 shakes, a bar, and a normal dinner, and plenty of people are already eating well past what researchers would classify as a high-protein diet, without ever consciously thinking about grams or percentages. There is also a very current reason so many people are paying attention to this number. Millions of people are now on weight loss medications that suppress appetite dramatically, and doctors keep repeating the same warning to them. Eat enough protein, or the weight you lose will not just be fat, it will be muscle too. That single piece of advice alone has pushed protein intake up for an enormous and growing slice of the population. And that gap is where a real medical worry has been quietly growing for years. Because whenever people jump well above the official numbers for long stretches of time, doctors ask the obvious question: what is that doing to the rest of the body? The kidneys are usually the first organ people worry about, and there has been research on that for decades. But there is a second organ that gets talked about far less in the protein conversation, and it might matter even more for how long you actually live. The heart. Have you ever paused mid-protein shake and wondered whether all that extra protein is quietly doing something to your cardiovascular system? It is not a paranoid question. The research on this has genuinely been a mess for years, pulling in different directions depending on which study you read. Some cohort studies following people for a decade or more have linked higher protein consumption to better blood pressure, better cholesterol markers, and easier long-term weight control, all of which are good for the heart on paper. Other studies have gone the opposite direction, tying high protein eating especially from animal sources, to a higher risk of tipping into type 2 diabetes, worse kidney function, and even higher rates of death from cardiovascular disease and cancer combined. A few studies have even suggested something like a U-shape, where both too little and too much protein carry some extra risk, and only a middle range is truly safe. If that sounds contradictory, that is because it partly is, and a big part of the reason comes down to something almost embarrassingly basic. How do you actually define high protein in a scientific study? You might assume every study uses the same cutoff. They do not. Some studies decide high protein is simply whatever the top 20% of people in their sample happen to eat, compared against the bottom 20%. That sounds reasonable until you realize that if an entire study population eats a fairly low protein diet overall, the high protein group in that study might still be eating a completely normal amount by anyone else's standard. You end up comparing slightly more protein against slightly less protein and calling it a study on high protein diets, when nobody in it actually ate what a nutritionist would call a high protein diet at all. This is not a small technical footnote. It is arguably the single biggest reason the research on protein and heart health has looked so inconsistent for so long. Different studies, using different populations, end up implicitly testing completely different diets while using the exact same label. So how could extra protein possibly hurt the heart in the first place, even in theory? One idea floating around in the science points to something happening deep inside the walls of your blood vessels. Very high levels of circulating amino acids can trigger immune cells living inside artery walls to behave differently, in a way that some researchers think could speed up the buildup of the fatty plaques behind heart attacks and strokes. It is a real biological pathway worth studying. It is also, notably, based mostly on animal experiments, not proof of what actually happens inside a living human body over decades of eating this way. So here is the real question hiding underneath all of this. If you take a genuinely strict, honest definition of a high-protein diet, one that any nutritionist would actually recognize as high protein, and you follow enough people for long enough, does it raise your risk of heart attack, stroke, or death from cardiovascular disease? That is precisely the question a team of researchers set out to answer, by pulling together the largest, most carefully defined pool of evidence gathered on this question to date. Publishing their findings in the journal Nutrients, the team, led by Mantzouranis, went back through the medical literature and gathered every prospective study they could find that tracked healthy adults over time and reported on protein intake alongside heart attacks, strokes, or cardiovascular deaths. But first, they fixed the definition problem. Instead of comparing whichever percentile happened to eat the most in each individual study, they set one single, strict bar for every study included. To count as a high-protein diet, at least 18% of a person's daily energy intake had to come from protein. For an average adult eating between 1,800 and 2,300 calories a day, that works out to roughly 4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, nearly double the official minimum. After screening 365 articles down to the ones that actually met that bar and had usable data, 14 prospective cohort studies made the final cut, covering 656,490 adults total, none of whom had existing heart disease when the tracking began. And the results were, in the best possible sense, almost boring. Look first at cardiovascular death, the most serious outcome of all. 6 of the studies, covering 221,583 people, tracked how many died specifically from cardiovascular causes. When the numbers were combined, there was no statistically meaningful difference between the high protein group and the normal protein group. Not a lower risk, not a higher risk. Essentially no difference at all. Next, stroke. 3 studies with a combined 90,231 participants looked at non-fatal strokes specifically. Again, no significant difference between high and normal protein eaters in either direction. Finally, the researchers combined every cardiovascular event they could, non-fatal heart attacks, non-fatal strokes, and cardiovascular deaths, into one composite outcome, using data from 13 studies and 525,047 people in total. Even with that much statistical power behind it, the difference between high and normal protein diets still did not reach significance. 3 separate outcomes, over 500,000 people combined. And in every single one, a genuinely high protein diet showed no measurable extra danger to the heart. That does not mean protein source is irrelevant. The study authors point out that earlier research suggesting a cardiovascular benefit from protein has tended to trace that benefit specifically to plant-based sources, things like beans, lentils, and soy, while diets built heavily around animal protein have produced messier results elsewhere in the literature. This particular analysis did not separate plant from animal protein, mostly because almost nobody eats a truly high-protein diet from only one source in real life, so it could not settle that narrower debate. It is also worth being upfront about the limits here. All 14 studies were observational. Researchers followed people who were already eating a certain way, rather than randomly assigning half of them to a high-protein diet and the other half to a normal one. That means the results show an association, not airtight proof of cause and effect. Things the researchers could not fully strip out, like overall diet quality, exercise habits, or existing risk factors like high blood pressure, could still be shaping the picture behind the scenes. But taken together, across the biggest and most strictly defined pool of protein and heart data assembled so far, the message is a reassuring one, not a dramatic one. If you are eating a genuinely high protein diet to lose weight, hold onto muscle, or just stay full longer, this research suggests your heart is very unlikely to be quietly paying a hidden price for it. Whether it is actively protecting your heart on top of that, and how much that depends on where the protein comes from, is still an open question for the next study to answer.